Okay, welcome to The Conversation With. I'm your host, Jake Fradon-Atty. Thanks for coming, folks. This is the Virtual Community Conversation Zoom Nevada County Center for the Arts weekly series. And this is free for members for Center for the Arts and $10 for everybody else. And if you are a member, you have full access to all the past shows on the website, thecenterforthearts.org. The purpose of this series is to just keep everybody connected in these COVID times, to give us something to do on our Sunday afternoon, and to get to know some of Nevada County's more eccentric and exciting and interesting weirdos. Experts. And hopefully soon the past episodes will be archived and available, because we've already had a couple of very interesting conversations, although they seem to mostly have been about health, but maybe this is a good time to talk about health, especially mental health. Today we're going to be talking to Ryan Murray. He's the Artistic Director and Conductor of Music in the Mountains. He is also the Director of the Orchestra and Opera at CSU Sacramento, the winner of the Vienna Philharmonic's Ansbacher Fellowship, if I said that right, and the American Prize in Opera Conducting. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you. Nice to be here today.
Okay. And today's topic is going to be choral music, specifically why music is so important for mental health and all the benefits of listening to classical music and singing specifically. So let's dive into it. What do you got for us, Ryan?
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. I think that I know everybody here, so it's nice to see all of you. And I'm happy to be here today. So today's conversation is divided into 3 parts, and it's not in the most detail because we want to talk to you as well. We want to hear your questions and be covering those. But I hope that it gives you some interesting things to think about and some further resources to look into things on a more detailed level. And we'll talk about music and why music is so important to us, and also both the mental and the physical health benefits to performing music and attending concerts. So I've got a little presentation here that we can start with, if that sounds good, Jake.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. Okay, so we're talking about classical music and choral singing. And the first topic that I want to talk about is, why does music affect us? And I thought the best way to get into that would be to listen to a short clip of music. So this is a performance from many years ago with the Music in the Mountains Chorus and Music in the Mountains Orchestra, doing the most famous part of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And as you know, those that have been on lots of Zoom calls, sometimes the audio and the video doesn't arrive at your computer at the same time. And that's just a wonderful function of Zoom, but you should be able to hear it well anyway. So could we hear that?
Yes.
Great. Everybody but Linda. I think Linda's got a perplexed look there. So sorry, Linda, but you've heard it before. You're even singing in this performance, I think. So, so when we hear great music, we have a reaction to what we're hearing. And I want to talk about part of why that is. So first, let's talk about music in our lives. So music is a fundamental part of our lives as humans, and nearly all cultures make music. And our brains are hardwired to distinguish music from noise. And our brains respond to rhythm, repetition, tones, and tunes. And so the question that comes up often is was this on purpose? Was this some sort of, evolutionary development for how we learned language and how we process language? And did that transfer over into music? Or was it a happy biological accident? And there's lots of arguments either way and lots of research done about this. But also there are many, many studies that say that music enhances health and performance. So if you're the kind of person that is really interested in evolutionary biology and early humans and development of language, there's a fantastic book called The Singing Neanderthals by Stephen Mithen. The Origins of Music, Language, Mind, and Body. And he goes into great detail to try to link how our language fits with the music that we listen to, and how being able to recognize patterns to learn language created this platform for us to create music. So it's a really interesting book. It's not a short book, and it's not a particularly easy read, but if you want to learn more about early humans and music, that's The Singing Neanderthals. And now I want to talk about a couple of specific things with regards to our lives and music. And first we'll talk about music and the brain. So there have been recent studies done using MRIs and PET scans that show different areas of the brain are responsible for decoding different elements of music, from chords to melody to harmony. There's another area of the brain that is for timbre or tone quality, another area for rhythm, and another area of the brain for the emotional content. If you think about how you get chills when you listen to great music, that's that section of the brain. So listening to really good music activates all of these areas of the brain at once, and that's part of why we can become so engrossed when listening to music. If we talk about music and the mind, we might talk about what's called the Mozart effect, and that would be something that you could read more about. But lots of studies have shown an increased cognitive function while listening to classical music, especially with math. And we talk a lot about this correlation between music and math, and why music is so important for young people as well. It really does help us when we're thinking about math and science. And if we talk about maybe the most important one to us right now, music and stress and dealing with stress, there's a quote from the British dramatist William Congreve from 1697. "Music has charms to soothe a savage breast." So even in the 1600s, they were using classical music or music as a way to decompress and de-stress. And there are many studies that talk about lowering of blood pressure, the need for less pain medication. They've found that slower meditative music has the most effect here. And maybe that's why classical music is part of what draws us towards that. And there's a really interesting correlation between music and doctors, or music and becoming a doctor. They've found that if you studied music as a young person, you have a much higher chance of becoming a doctor later in life. And they don't quite know exactly what the correlation is there, but another benefit for young people and studying music. So there's two fantastic books that are specifically about this topic. The first one, Musicophilia by Dr. Oliver Sacks. Oliver Sacks was a neurosurgeon who was also a musician. This is a fantastic book, and this one is actually a really fun read. It doesn't go too in depth into the science side of things, and it covers really interesting things like why does a tune get stuck in our head, and why can some people match pitch and other people can't. And, you've heard of people that are tone deaf or people that have perfect pitch. So he goes into the neurological aspects of that. But there's also something called dysrhythmia that he talks about, where people are unable to distinguish between different patterns of rhythms. So it's a really interesting book. I can't recommend this one enough. I would definitely look into that. And then there's one other I would recommend by Daniel Levitin called This Is Your Brain on Music. And this book covers a little more of these kind of health benefits of going to a concert, health benefits of singing. A lot of interesting things about why, when we're trying to do a math problem, if we have Mozart on in the background, we're able to solve it faster. These kind of things. So I'd recommend those two books very highly. And that kind of takes us through our first little mini section here. So it's probably a good time to see if Jake has any follow-ups or if there are any questions in the chat or anybody has any questions about what we've covered so far.
No questions in the chat unless somebody wants to jump in. You know, I'm one of those people that is completely tone deaf. And, you know, my wife is, she used to be in a Latin band. She's a singer. She loves music. I love music. I love Mozart. I put on Mozart piano sonatas almost every morning just to start my day.
Nice.
And it's just like you're saying, it preps me for the whole day to just kind of have that, very familiar at this point since there's only like 13 or 15 of them or something. But to me, that's like better than coffee. It's better than anything. We're just making sure I'm in the right zone to get through whatever's coming next.
That's great. And actually, you bring up a fantastic point that I didn't talk about, and that's familiarity. And one thing that I like to say for people that are going, I'm just not into classical music, and I like to make the analogy to a pop song on the radio. So if a pop song is maybe 3 minutes, let's say it's 3 minutes, and the first time you hear it, you think like, oh, that was all right. And then the second time, oh, that's kind of a good song. And then by the 10th time, this is the greatest song I've ever heard in my life. I wanted to listen to it over and over. So to listen to a 3-minute song 10 times takes a half an hour. To listen to a Mozart symphony that's a half an hour 10 times takes a lot longer. So as you mentioned, you're so familiar with these pieces, and we like what we're familiar with. So I always encourage anybody, Mozart sonatas are a great place to start, actually. Pick one and listen to it 10 times before you make a decision. I think you'll find that you really change your overall opinion on it.
Okay, we have a couple questions here. Jenny wants to know what is the difference between tone and tune deaf? Is there such a thing?
Between tone and tune deaf. I don't think there's a difference in the way that we use these words, and part of that is a language problem, because tone really should be left for only timbre or the quality of sound. Like, is it a rich tone? Is it a bright tone? Is it a dark tone? Is it a, brilliant tone? And tune or tuning should actually be left for whether the notes are in tune or out of tune. But we kind of blur those two words a lot. Like, oh, this singer sings with great tone, when maybe you're actually talking about that they sing really well in tune. And so that's why the confusion exists there. But there's not really a difference.
Ryan, can I give an explanation?
Sure.
Well, so for example, Tim. Tim cannot sing anything. I mean, he cannot sing. I mean, he sings along with the radio in the car. It's frankly painful. And so I always thought he was tone deaf. But when he has his pager, well, back when that was a thing, and they would do tone outs for the different fire departments, he could repeat back the tones in perfect pitch. And I was always just astounded. So I couldn't understand the disconnect.
That's very interesting. It seems to me that is more of a vocal mechanism issue than a brain issue. Because there is a neurological problem of being able to hear the difference between different pitches. Then there's a physiological problem of being able to produce those pitches with your voice. So I think that there's probably some disconnect there. Or he's just doing it to mess with you because it's Tim.
No, he was always told he couldn't sing. Maybe it's just a matter of, you believe what you hear.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like in my case, I can hear the songs perfect in my head, but it's my mouth that's the problem, or my vocal cords. So,
yeah,
whatever type of deaf that is. Hindi says that classical music, even just in the background, is so relaxing as opposed to the chatter of radio or TV.
See, it's funny, Hindi, that I agree with you, except not for me. So for me, because music is my profession, I can't have it on in the background. So I prefer, if I want background, it's like talking or bad TV, and that's just fine. But if it's a Mozart symphony or a Beethoven sonata, it's not relaxing at all. I'm engaged like this, But I'm not normal in that way though. So.
Okay. I'm going to save Amber Joe's question for a little later when we talk about COVID and such. Do you have a second part of your presentation?
Yeah, let's go on. So let's talk about the benefits of attending a live concert, which is what we all really want to be doing right now. But I think there's some benefits also in a live streamed concert or a community streamed event. And so obviously we've talked about listening to music and the benefits there, but I think attending a concert, live music, takes everything up to the next level, because now you're experiencing everything together with other people. So we've got this sense of community and this shared experience. And if you think about humanity over the course of time, shared experience was an important part of human nature that has become more and more rare as everybody's in their own kind of digital worlds. So I think that's why the concert hall is such a special place, or live theater. You know, it's a true chance to be together in the moment without the distractions of everyday life. But they've actually done studies. It's not just saying, oh, I feel really great when I go to a concert. They've measured lots of different things and found reduction in the stress hormones of cortisol and cortisone. They test people when they come to the concert and when they leave. And Aaron Williamson from the Royal College of Music has gone as far to say that reduction in cortisol can actually lead to increased immune function. So you're becoming healthier by going to a live concert. And decrease of negative mood, things like being tense and sad and anxious, and an increase in positive mood, relaxed and connected. So those are all things that we want. And so you should all go to live concerts as much as you can. Now, what we've been doing in the meantime, lots of organizations have been doing virtual events like this one we're doing today. And I've found, and my choir members have found as well, that even being on Zoom together, people feel connected and they feel a lift when they get to the end of the rehearsal, because it is about that connection. And when we do concerts on YouTube or whatever streaming platform we might be using, there's a live chat at the same time, so people are able to talk to each other. There's something, maybe it's just for me, but there's something about watching a concert even online and knowing that 200 people are watching it at the same time as me. That is different than just surfing through YouTube and looking for videos of concerts. So I personally find a difference there. And I think based on the number of returning people that are coming to concerts, they're feeling that way as well. Although we're all looking forward to being in person again, which is obviously the most fun. And hopefully it'll be sooner rather than later.
Does Music from the Mountains have a big plan for a end of COVID bash, a concert extravaganza, something?
Well, I should say, like many organizations, we have about 5 different plans, depending on what's going to happen when. But certainly, it's going to be a big celebration when we come back together and share music together in person. And in the meantime, we've been doing these fantastic virtual concert series, basically one a month. We had a holiday concert that we filmed at the Center for the Arts, which was fantastic. I also can't wait for everybody to get to experience a concert in the new Center for the Arts. I had a great time recording there, and the sound system is second to none, so it's going to be a really exciting thing. Before that, we had a guest violinist from New York come and play. We've had members from our orchestra play, and we've got some coming up as well, one in February and one in March. February is called Summerfest Highlights. We're going to relive some of the great moments that we had over this past Summerfest and several before that. And in March, a group called Imani Wins is coming into play. So there's going to be lots of cool things happening.
Great. Yeah, it's interesting. Just, COVID has just made some things so clear, and made us appreciate some things that we took for granted, especially something like sitting in a theater with a bunch of people and listening quietly to classical music for an hour. That sounds like heaven to me right now, really. Well, you would have had to drag me there just a few short months ago.
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's also interesting that we've seen that so many jobs and so many industries could shift fairly easily to a digital or virtual format. But music is just one of those things that needs that human connection.
Yeah, which we all need right now.
So speaking of human connection, this is a great segue to go to talking about singing in a choir. So if you think about the 3 components here as tears, listening to music is great and good for you and wonderful. Going to a concert is even better. Singing in a choir, I think, is at the top for getting the amount of benefits out of being part of music. You know, participating is an amazing thing. And I even put that in my slide. How handy is that? All the points we've covered so far are magnified in group singing. And anyone who sings in a choir can tell you how much better they feel at the end of the rehearsal versus the start. People feel more connected and less isolated. Chorus members are more likely to give back to their communities. And I found these statistics from the American Society of Singing, which I thought were really interesting. 69% of singers aged 65 and above report a very good quality of life versus 22% of the general public of the same age. That's a kind of an amazing statistic. 90% of choral singers regularly vote versus 55% of the general public. And nearly 20% of older singers reported improvements in one or more chronic health conditions due to singing. So there's, you know, even if you only sing in the shower, you should sing, because it's one of the great things that we can do as humans is to use our voice that way. And if you can find a choir to sing in, all the better. And Nevada County is an amazing place because there's so many choirs. You know, compared to the size of the population, there are so many choirs. So you definitely could find a place to sing, whether it's in a church group or in a concert type group or in the Grass Valley Men's Chorus or Music in the Mountains or in Concert Sierra. There's these wonderful places where you can, you know, share your voices with everybody. So I can't recommend it highly enough. In fact, that's one thing that I miss being a conductor and a professional musician, and my calendar being kind of booked out, is that's one thing. If I had extra time, that's what I would do, is find a choir to sing, you know, a small choir to sing with. I think that would be really fun. So the last thing I've got here, and then we can take more questions and conversation. Oh no, actually I have two more things. This is one other interesting thing. And you can read more about this, but they did this study on a choir where they put pulse monitors on everyone. And they found that as the rehearsal went along, that the choir, the heartbeat of the individual members of the choir started to all line up. So everyone in the room had the same pulse at the same time, or close to the same pulse. And so when the music got faster, the pulses went up together as a group, and when the music slowed down, the pulses came down. They think it's related to the way that we breathe when we sing, and sort of the extended breathing that we have to do as singers. But I thought that's like quantifiable evidence of how we all sync together when we're singing. And you can see a bit of that here. So this is the Music in the Mountains chorus. It's just a black screen right now. And it's a virtual performance, which means that everybody in the choir recorded their part at home. They weren't together. But I think even in this virtual performance, you can see that kind of feel that sense of togetherness as everybody's singing the same thing at the same time. This is from Rachmaninoff's All-Night Vigil, and it's Bogorodice Dievo, or it's Rachmaninoff's Ave Maria. So that was our little group singing for the day, and that was Music in the Mountains chorus, singing in Russian from their homes, one person at a time.
So wait, now, how did that actually work? They were doing that one at a time. Were you conducting them? I mean, I'm surprised.
So that could be a whole nother in conversation with, I think, but I'll give you the short version, is that I make a track with myself conducting and singing all the parts, kind of like the little promo video that you saw for this event. And then that goes to the choir members. And they wear earbuds so that they can hear me, but I can only hear them. And they sing right along with the track and then send me their recording. And then they all get put together and lined up, and that's how it works.
You weren't all singing on Zoom at the same time.
No,
like
I
wish.
Like. I wish. Yeah, it doesn't happen on Zoom. That's for sure.
Yeah.
As you know, you can barely. We've tried even 2 or 3 people singing on Zoom, and it just doesn't work. Yeah.
Great.
So that's some things I think that are really exciting about singing and listening to music and going to concerts. And happy to take some questions now, or just open up the conversation.
Hindy's got a question that I feel is very appropriate. Do you feel that anyone and everyone can sing, or are there people who really, really, really can't carry a tune?
So, as a conductor, I think of all the people I've ever worked with, which is in the thousands, I would imagine, that there's 2 or 3 that I've met that truly cannot match pitch. So it's pretty rare, but it does exist. Oftentimes it has more to do with breathing and other, laryngeal, pharyngeal, tongue placement issues that happen when singing. But it is true there are some people that cannot distinguish between the different tones when they're trying to sing. In fact, one of my friends in high school was like that, and you'd sing 2 notes really far apart, like ba, bee, and he'd think they were the same. So that does exist.
Okay. Hindy thinks it might be good to do video concerts in the future so that people on YouTube can watch them.
Absolutely. I think that's a big takeaway for a lot of us during this pandemic, is that the reach that we've been able to have through virtual programming has been really exciting. And I think that there's absolutely no reason that, and I hate to use the word hybrid, because we hear the word hybrid all the time, or at least at the university, it's always hybrid this, hybrid that. But I think that's exactly what it is, is that the concerts will be live for those that want to attend the concerts live, and they'll be recorded for those that are either unable to attend live or for whatever reason prefer to watch at home. And maybe those that attend live want to watch it the next week at home again, So I think that's really important, Hindy, that we don't forget the skills that we've learned during this time, but at the same time we get back to in-person concerts.
I guess the truth is that choral singing is a kind of a high-risk activity. You
Absolutely.
Need everybody vaccinated, and the audience too.
Yeah, there are different levels of risk depending on the instrumentation. Strings, I think, are the least, because they can be masked the whole time. Of course, right now everything is too high of a risk, but yeah, it's going to be an interesting journey figuring out exactly how to get back to doing things. And but choral singing is one of the more dangerous things as we're working to enunciate our consonants and everything.
I noticed the choir video you showed us. There's a lot of the older side than the younger side. Are we getting young people involved in the chorus these days? Is that like pulling teeth? Is that hard?
Well, there's a couple things to that. We have had success with a small youth chorus with high school students. But what tends to happen, at least in this area, is that singers that are in Rod's great high school program graduate and go to college out of town. and then they've got their lives and their profession, and then we find that they come back when they've worked for a while and maybe their kids are a little older and they have this free time to be able to sing. So, younger people tend to be, especially if they're in college, tend to be really busy to put aside every Monday night. I mean, the Music in Mountains chorus is pretty serious as far as, not missing rehearsals and learning your music and being on time, and that can be tough if you're balancing a work life and a family life at the same time. So it does become a place where people that are a little bit older have this time to come back in and come singing. But it's not that anyone is not welcome or invited. And I would say that in the virtual setting, several of the young people that are singing with our chorus are zoomed out from whatever their jobs are and don't want to be on Zoom anymore, so they haven't been joining us for the Zoom rehearsals. So you'll see more of them when we're in person concerts. And we've had years where we've had a lot of younger people and years where there's not as many. So.
And do you guys, is it all classical music, or do you do more contemporary stuff too?
Well, we do contemporary classical music.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty much all classical music.
We do Broadway.
Yeah, but I think to young people, actually Broadway is popular again. So that's Broadway is having a great revival. So we do some Broadway, but we don't do like pop charts that are arranged for choir very often. One time we did a Queen concert. That was kind of fun, with a Queen cover band, and the choir was the background track for that. So but it's definitely, classical music is definitely our focus.
I have to say that the thing that got me back into Broadway musicals was the Les Mis movie that came out a few years ago. And some of the singing in that is atrocious, but that's kind of the charm of it, That's the movie that made me realize, well, wait, anybody can sing.
It's great music. It's great music, and that's the thing. It's like I'm a classical music specialist, and so I would not know what to do if someone put me in front of a show choir, for example. But that doesn't mean that I don't like and enjoy all kinds of music. So, I think that great music is great music regardless of the genre. But it's just that I am very firmly footed in the classical realm.
Great. Melissa says, is there an opportunity for a spin-off Music in the Mountain community chorus that has a more lenient attendance structure, an amateur chorus?
Interesting. I don't know that there would be an opportunity for a spin-off of the MIM chorus, just because there is not really time for myself and the other kind of leadership to run another chorus. But there are lots of different choruses in town that have different, requirements. I shouldn't oversell it. If we have a 3-month semester, I think you're allowed to miss 2 rehearsals. So it's not like you can't miss any ever. But the problem is we work very quickly and we cover a lot of music. So if you miss 2 or 3 rehearsals in a row, then you'll have a hard time catching up. Now that we're on Zoom, it's a free-for-all. But when we're in person, we try to stay pretty close to that.
Well, there's that chorus that just happens in the shower. That's open to everybody.
Yeah. No attendance required.
Big shower. There's plenty of room. We'll just all squeeze in there. So before we wrap this up, are there any other questions? Maybe unmute everybody.
Amber Joe had a question earlier that you were going to come back to.
Oh, yes, but it's so depressing. Have you considered when we get back to concerts and how you'll program? What if folks want to come, but the crowds give them anxiety? What might you do to program? What music might you program to help us through the anxiety of?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's definitely one that's in my mind every day. Obviously, there is music that is accessible and music that is kind of warm and fuzzy, and other music that is also great music but requires a different way of listening and can be a little I hate to use hard to listen to, but it just a little bit more out there. And I think coming back from the pandemic is not necessarily the time for music that's more out there. I think it's time for the comfort food of classical music, or for a little while. That being said, there are modern pieces that easily fall into that category as well. Thinking we did, for example, several years ago with Music in the Mountains, the Dan Forrest Requiem for the Living, which was written in 2009 or 11, I can't remember, which is modern but beautiful and lovely and became everybody's favorite thing. So that's one thing with regards to programming. I also want to do, celebratory music like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and things that will really be exciting. But the other question you ask is a really interesting one, and it's how do you make the audience comfortable with attending? And that's certainly something that we're looking at in great detail about, reduced audience sizes, shorter programs, a 45-minute program with a long break to sanitize the hall, and then another audience coming in to see the same 45-minute program, so that you can maybe only have 50 or 75 people in at a time. There's all these kind of things, because ultimately, it's not an if you build it, they will come scenario, right? If people don't feel comfortable and don't want to come, then you won't have audience. So those are great and difficult questions that we're all trying to find the answers to right now, I think.
I guess outside concerts are hard.
Absolutely. Outdoors is this, I think, the safest and the easiest to kind of get started with. And indoors will be another set of requirements. Yeah.
Right. Melissa wants recommendations for some classical pieces or playlists of calm classical comfort music.
I mean, honestly, I think anything from Haydn, Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms will kind of get you there. I actually would maybe highly recommend the Brahms symphonies, which are all about 45 minutes long and kind of expansive and might kind of give that meditative quality that you're looking for. That's, things from the Romantic period. One of my favorite things is to listen to Renaissance choral music. I think that is one of the most soul calming things out there. And I can recommend very highly Voces 8, VOCES 8, one of the finest choral groups performing today, and they do a lot of Renaissance music. Another would be the Tallis Scholars, or the 16 is another group. They all perform this 1600s choral music, which is really, really, really comforting. I personally think that, I love orchestral music. I love all music, but there's something about vocal music that connects with us on a really human level. I think because we all sing a little bit to one way or another, and we all kind of resonate with vocal music. So choral music is a great place to start, and those are some of the things that I would kind of look into.
Okay.
I really find the Morton Lordenson Onata Lukes very calming when I'm anxious. I don't know if anybody else does, but
I maybe type that in the chat. I'm not sure exactly what you said there. Did you get that, Jenny? Hopefully. Okay, well.
if I can spell Lorendson, I can't remember it anymore.
I can grab it, Jenny.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
I think we have the bullet slide with our 3 points. I don't know if Cameron has that, or if you've got that, Ryan, the wrap-up slide.
I do not have that.
Okay, Cameron's got it. Well, thank you very much, Ryan. That was very interesting, as usual. I'm sure we could talk about classical music for hours, but that's our 40 minutes for today, and thank you. I also want to thank everybody who helps make this series happen. Amber Jo Manuel, our director, Melissa Clark, the producer, Cameron Brown, Zoom and technical expert, Conrad Sisk, our cameraman, Ryan Murray, our guest today. Next week, we are going to be talking with Hank Meals about winter hiking around the Yuba. That will be at 4 o'clock, just like today. I hope to see you guys there. And again, at the center right now, we have the art show in the gallery, Marie Wolf, Speaking of Imagination, paintings. The gallery is open Tuesday through Friday, 12 to 4. And we have winter classes for youth and adults in February, including a virtual class on playwriting. That should be fun. Anything we missed? I think we're good. If everybody wants to say their adios. Adios.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for all the
coming, everybody.
recommendations.
Bye.
Thank you, Ryan.